Good afternoon, welcome to Canning with Kate, and I am here trying something I have never done before that I am excited to try. Today we are going to be canning up butternut squash. My husband had mentioned a couple weeks ago that he had seen a video that looked really good to make butternut squash soup, and as he does not like soup, I jumped on that because I love soup, and I said, okay, I will go ahead and find out how to can up some butternut squash soup. So what I've been finding is that it's very difficult to make the soup. You can make a soup base, but I didn't want to do that today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to can up the butternut squash in chunks. So I'm not going to puree it. I know that for some of you out there, you may have already canned the pureed butternut squash. Sometimes people will can pureed pumpkin. I'm sure that that is, in Rebel terms, totally fine. But for me, for the first time that I'm doing it, I'm choosing not to do that because it's the very first time I've ever done this. Later on in my, canning experience with the butternut squash, I may choose to do it a different way. But for today, this is not a Rebel canning video. This is by the book. So what we are doing is we are going, I bought these, except for this one. This one is grown from my garden, so I'm hoping that it turns out well. I'm just kind of curious what it looks like on the inside. So I am going to cut into this one today. I may or may not use it, depending on what it looks like. But I do have 4 butternut squashes equaling about 10 pounds-ish of the squash. Actually, 4. So the way that we are doing this is you want to cut it before you peel it. That's the way that I was shown. So I have this one already done. I've taken out all the seeds from here, and I have peeled it. I will show you quickly how I did that. I did that with a vegetable peeler and a knife. And then after that, it's pretty simple, but as with pumpkin, it does take some strength to cut into these. So I'm not going to let you see me struggle with all of them. I will just let you see me struggle with the first one, and then we'll come back after I've got all of these cut. All right, so you cut off the top, and I cut off right in the middle, kind of where it bulges. And a lot of times you're going to see the seeds right off the bat, but I didn't, so I'm going to cut mine first. To cut the end off. I'm sure that there's an easier way to cut this. Okay, so I do have seeds starting in there. And with my ends, I'm just going to put them in a bowl over there, just kind of as my scraps. Then for this guy, since I do need to take out the seeds, all right, so there's the seeds. You can use a spoon to scrape out the seeds. I've also heard that taking a leftover canning lid makes it really easy. So just scrape out the seeds. And of course, you're gonna make, well, I'm gonna make a mess. Maybe you won't make a mess, but I will. All right. So I've got this one de-seeded. Scrape this one. It's kind of exactly like a pumpkin. That's what this feels like to me, which is perfect for fall, right? Because a lot of us are canning pumpkin or making pumpkin pies or carving pumpkins for jack-o'-lanterns. Oh my gosh. Okay. You get to see the reality here. All right, so those are de-seeded. Now I get to do the easier part, which is just peeling it. So you just take a sharp vegetable peeler, and this is gonna make a mess because I already did it with one and the peels went flying. So, yep, there we go. And it's actually pretty simple. It's not as hard to peel this. I thought maybe that the skin would be thicker and it would take a lot of time and effort to peel this guy, but it's really not that bad. And I'm actually going to try this method with a pumpkin. I wanted to can up some pumpkin to make pumpkin pies later in the future. So I'm gonna see how that goes, and I may do a film for that one. But the reason I wanted to do the butternut squash is to make a super simple meal with the soup. I'm only going to be doing pints. We do have a much larger family, but I don't know honestly if my kids would eat the butternut squash soup. So I'm not going to can up a whole bunch of it until I know that they're gonna eat it. So that's why I'm just doing pints. And that way I can do more of either a single serve recipe for my husband, or he and I can just share the pint jar recipe together for a meal or a side, because this is all new and I have absolutely no idea how much soup this is going to make. I don't know if it's going to be something that we want to do on the regular, so we'll just have to wait and see. But I am doing pints. You can absolutely do quarts if you already know that you love butternut squash and that you're going to use lots of it, or if you have a larger family, or whatever. You can absolutely do this in quarts. This is pressure canned, so you want to make sure that you have your pressure canner ready. I was thinking that this might also be really good with bacon. You know how you kind of fry up potatoes, diced potatoes, and you can do the diced potatoes with bacon, and it's super, super good. I was thinking that this might be something that I would do that would be really yummy. So there are options besides just the soup. You could fry them up. I don't know if people have ever made mashed butternut squash, but something like potatoes, that might be good. So I'm just gonna do this as all flying all over the place. Oh my gosh. And we have a super loud train right in our front yard, like literally in our front yard. Okay, sorry, I'm sure that was really loud. There was just like a little imperfection on my squash, and I want to make sure I get rid of those. I don't want to can up something like that. All right, so we are just going to keep doing this. I have 2 more and the one that came from my garden. So once I get all of this peeled and cut, I will bring you back and go on to the next step. All right, see you in a second. Hey, okay, so I'm back. It took a little bit longer than I thought. I learned that butternut squash is just like a pumpkin and it's hard to cut. So I don't know why I was thinking anything else, but I did take some extra time getting those cut. I also allowed my son to help me do the cutting. He really enjoys helping, so it took a little bit longer too. But once you get your squash de-seeded and peeled, then you're going to need to dice it up into about 1-inch chunks. Once you get it all diced up and cut up into chunks, then the next step is to blanch them for 2 minutes. So these two bowls took me 2 different batches to do the blanching, but now they are ready to go. My jars are nice and hot and clean. So I am not quite sure how many jars I'm gonna get, but I got 13. Most of them are wide mouth because I think it's just gonna be a lot easier to can in the wide mouth jars. So I'm going to leave my regular mouth jars until the very last, just so if I don't need to use them, I don't have to. So what we're gonna do is just start packing these guys into your jars. Now you can pack these in and then just put them with water, or you can pack them into something like chicken broth. That might be really yummy. And another Rebel canning method is to do them dry pack, so without any liquid at all. Again, I am simply going by the book today. I am not going to be doing anything out of the ordinary for this today. But I believe that it's your kitchen, your rules, and that's just how I run mine. So there is not going to be any judgment on my part. You are responsible for your family and for your family's health, and that's how we run it. So if you are comfortable doing that, by all means, go for it. I'm not right now because I've never done this before. So you just pack your jars as much as you can up to that 1-inch head space. Now, once these have processed, you are going to have them floating because the majority of the time your vegetables are going to float. You're going to have some floating in the water or whatever liquid you choose to pack your food in. But I'm going to try and get as much as I can in here so that I'm not wasting a whole lot of space in my jars. So that's just a little tip. These are not super soft, so it's not like I can squish them in there. And I don't really want to, but I do want to get as many in there as I can. It does look like I'm going to be using all of my jars, which is great. So again, this was 4 full-size butternut squash. I did cut into the one that I grew, the little baby one, and it looked great, but I'm not using it because it was so small and I wasn't quite sure that it was exactly ready. I didn't want to process it just for that reason, but it gives me hope for next year when I start growing again that I can grow this on my own and hopefully be able to can up a lot more and maybe even try different methods for the canning, which is always fun to learn. So I'm going to be canning these in water today. I'm not putting any salt. I'm not putting any seasoning in my jars today. Usually I would do some salt or something, but because I don't really know how I'm going to be cooking these, Later, I wanted to leave room for seasoning as I make a meal. So if I choose to make soup, or if I want to just fry them up, I'll be able to do that and not have to worry about the seasoning. All right, so we've got these. Okay, I have a little bit more. It looks like I could probably get one more jar, but I'm gonna see how these end up going with the water once I add the water, because sometimes you can pack a little bit more in that way. And then if I still have some more, then I might go ahead and wash another jar up real quick so that I'm not wasting any precious food. All right, let me go grab my pot and I will start the pouring process and show you how to do that. Okay, so here I am. I've got this is boiling water, nothing special. Somebody I saw use an electric kettle, which I thought was like the best thing ever. So you're not having to wait for your water to boil, you just have your electric kettle, which I think would be a fantastic Christmas present. Would save a lot of time, a lot of stovetop space, but I don't have that, so I just boiled my water on the stove and I'm just pouring it into my jars. Again, these are pint jars, and you can absolutely do quarts if you want more. Okay, so most of these are all filled, and I found that I do have space for one more jar. So I'm just going to fill this last guy up, and if you happen to have extra that is not going to fit in any of your jars, and you want to just put whatever's left in a jar and fill it with water, even though it's not full to the 1-inch headspace, that's okay. I mean, you need to fill it with water at least to the 1-inch headspace, but even if your jar is not completely full with food, that's okay. It's still going to be fine. It's still going to be totally safe to process. So this one is going to be a little bit light on my squash, but that's okay. So now I'm just working on making sure that my headspace is accurate and debubbling. So once you've debubbled and made sure that all your food is at the proper headspace, then you can go ahead and start putting the lids on. Once the lids are on, I am going to be putting them into my canner. Okay, hold on one second. I've got to get my house a little bit quiet. All right, so once we get all of these debubbled, making sure that the headspace is accurate. Some of them need to be, okay, there we go. See, that one got settled. You will have your food settle a little bit, which is why it's okay to have a little extra just in case you need to repack a couple with a little bit more of your food. Okay, so I'm going to move this guy over here. Okay, everything else is good. Now, the only thing you need to do is to put the lids on. So you put your hot, clean lids on, put on the lids, okay, fingertip tight. Once that is done, I'm going to pop them into my pressure canner. Now, I have enough to do a double stack. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is a double stack in my canner. Once they are in the canner and it comes up to a vent, I'm going to vent for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to put on my weight. For my altitude, I put a 10-pound weight on. So then I'm going to put the weight on after a 10-minute vent, and I'm going to bring up to pressure. Once it hits the pressure point of 10 pounds or 11 pounds, then I'm going to start the time. For pints, I'm going to set it for 55 minutes. Okay, so it's a relatively short process time for a pressure canning project. And then once it hits that 55 minutes, turn off my heat, let it come down to 0 pounds pressure. Then I'm going to take off my lid and remove my jars. All right, good morning. So I am here with my completed butternut squash jars. Yesterday I finished with the canning process, and everything went just fine. So now I have actually gone ahead and washed them, and they are ready for my pantry shelf. However, yesterday I did not show the complete way to load them into the canner, and I did not do the rings, and so I wanted to go ahead and do that for those people who have not done this before. I wanted to make sure that I show the proper way to put the rings on. Can't show the lids because they're already on, but I can show you how to properly screw on the ring, and then how I would load them into the canner, since this is going to be a double stack in my canner. I did get 13 sealed jars, sealed pints from my 4 butternut squash, and then this one did not seal, so I put this one in the fridge. So if it doesn't seal, just stick it in the fridge and use it, within a week. So this one is going in the fridge, and I'm going to be kind of experimenting with that one this week. All right, so you ever have days where you're just like, oh, that was yesterday for me, which is why I did not do a proper ending. So I want to make that up to you guys because you deserve it. All right, so here is my completed washed jar of a pint jar of butternut squash. Love it. It's beautiful. Very happy with these. So when you are putting on your ring, you want to make sure that your lid is centered. Okay, first off. And then when you put your ring on, you just twist it until it meets resistance, and then just go a little bit more. You don't want to crank it on because then it will cause buckling of the lids. They may not seal properly, and then you've just wasted that process. So just make sure you don't wrench on your lids. Just go until you meet resistance, and then tighten it just a little bit more. It's called fingertip tight. All right, so all of these jars, I have 13 jars right here. Let's show you how I would do this. Okay, so here is my All-American canner. Okay, there we are. It's already cleaned out. So okay, here. I'll show you the proper way. All right. So whenever you load them, you want to make sure you have the tray in there. And then I have a mix of wide mouth and regular mouth jars. So you just stack them in there. For my canner, it is about 9 pints will go into the bottom of this jar. So I stack about 9 in there. Okay, so we have a full jar here, or a full canner. Put one more in there, I think. Okay, so when we have that full canner, then I still have 4 more. So I do not want to place those directly on top. I need to get my second tray and position it here, okay, on top of my other jars. And then I would just go ahead and stack my remaining pints on top of here. Okay, so this is how you would double stack. And then you just take your lid like so, and then, you know, lock your lid and make sure that it's all the same around. You don't want big gaps anywhere. So this is for the All-American. You cannot stack in this one. You cannot stack a quart jars, but you can stack the pints. So I have the 921 model, which I love. I do wish I had a bigger one so I could do, you know, double quarts, but it's just not in the cards. So that is what you do to screw on your lids, and how to stack for a double stack in your canner. And then once it is all processed, then you let them cool for 12 to 24 hours, and then you can remove the rings and wash them and get them labeled and put on your pantry shelf. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for bearing with me as I kind of came back the next day to finish this video. And I hope that y'all are having a wonderful day, and please like, subscribe, share my video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.